live.
We are live.
Welcome in, everyone. We'll uh, take a little bit here to get people in the stream. It's good to see everyone. Jimmy, how's it going? Um, we're going to talk a little bit about Red River. Hopefully, Oklahoma can keep it close, get some injury updates. Um, some things are looking promising, but nothing has been officially announced, so probably going to happen while we're live here. And then we'll look around college football like we usually do at the end of the show. Just talk about some of the bigger games happening and, where we think Oklahoma is going to be. Of course, we're going to give score predictions and all that fun jazz. We already got someone giving their score prediction. I love
Yeah.
the optimism. But
Yeah.
let's
I
go
will
ahead.
say, have you seen the line of the OU Texas game?
Has it gone back down? I haven't looked this morning.
It's gone down. Whenever we made our bets for Friday's episodes, we recorded Thursday. It was 9.5 points. It's now 8.5, a whole point. Could that be the fact that Dylan Gabriel just ran onto the field for
That's
warmups?
possible. Yeah, that's very possible. Michael, to answer your question, Brandon would probably, as over the last 2 weeks, probably would be sounding the fire alarm and talking about how much this team sucks. But today, I think he would be very optimistic and saying that you're going to beat the shit out of Texas.
That is so true. That would be him. He'd be sounding the, Mayday. It's horrible. The world's ending, and then he'd be like, "Well, we're going to beat Texas no matter what."
Yeah, and you'd probably be saying that we're going to destroy him. Quinn Ewers sucks, all that, the typical Brandon stuff. It sounds like you know a little bit about him. All right, so let's talk about the game. We've talked about it a lot this week. We gave some of our score predictions, but I feel like every day there's been some sort of development. So two things that were just confirmed. Billy Bowman is out for sure. Nick Anderson is not going to play today. It seems like he was starting to trend towards playing a little bit more with the, in real games. Doesn't look like he's healthy enough to do so today. And Dylan Gabriel is warming up. Is running, jogging around the field. Seems like it would be very difficult for him if he still had any sort of concussion symptoms to be out there. But no official word yet. Brum, what do you think about what we're seeing out of Dylan and about this game and how it could turn out now that we know that officially Billy Bowman will not be playing?
Well, we talked about Billy Bowman and obviously how important he is to this defense as a whole, let alone the secondary. Um, you know, I I'm curious to see how they handle it. Does Justin Harrington get more time back there? I'm not 100% sure. He seemed to be missing some assignments in some areas where he was just lost. Um, does Trey Morrison get more run there? Maybe. I don't know why a guy that played basically every defensive back position for North Carolina over the course of 4 years wouldn't get some run at a safety spot. Um, I think it's a tremendous loss, and catching, trying to tackle Xavier Worthy and running after him all game is going to be tough. But I'd like to think that they'd be able to shore it up, with a whole week of practice, with having, assuming that Billy Bowman wasn't going to play, because I assume that's what they, how they approach this game. And I would like to think that the communication and the discipline will be better. It's as a whole, it's not just the secondary, but it's just mental mistakes. And I would like to see that. I would like to think that it'd be cleaned up, but maybe not. Maybe it's they need to go more basic and just keep things in front of you. You don't need to be trying to make all the plays. Sometimes less is more. You hope for a drop and you hope for maybe one good play on a defensive series and make them punt. And rather than trying to, sack them every single time, like maybe in 2 years, OU will be able to, once they get the talent that they need on the defensive side. Um, I would like to see Trey Morrison get more run back there. I think he will. Um, but I could see it being a revolving door back there to see who's gonna step up and who's gonna play. What do you think?
Yeah, I do agree with the revolving door possibility. It just, I genuinely think it should be Trey Morrison back there. There's, for whatever reason, the transfer players aren't really playing that much. I mean, Jonah Lualu's come in and contributed a little bit. McCade Mettauer has been the most impactful transfer, but CJ Golden really hasn't been on the field. He did come in late, but Trey Morrison did not come in late, not touching the field very much. Even on rotation, you would at least like to see him in those scenarios when you're rotating out Justin Broyles, or in those few scenarios where Billy Bowman has been rotated out. You'd expect him to at least come in and do something, and he did last week. I know the commentators were saying it was a cheap shot. Maybe could have been a flag. I don't think it was as much of a cheap shot, flag-worthy play, probably. But at the end of the day, he wasn't called for any personal foul. He wasn't flagged. He can make plays like that, though, and that's kind of something we're going to need today. So hopefully we see Trey Morrison. I was high on Trey Morrison when he first transferred to Oklahoma. I think he can make a big impact because he showed exactly what he was last week. Even though he's a little guy, he's going to put a big hit on whatever player is going after the ball. And that receiver was significantly taller than him. He's not scared of someone that's bigger or taller. He's going to put every bit of power he can behind a hit to make sure he can keep the ball out of that guy's hand. I think that should be the guy that starts, but I wouldn't be surprised if they, threw out Keith Lawrence out there. I just really don't want to see Justin Harrington. I've tried to be open-minded about him coming back. I've never been a huge fan of him, but I know that he's made some big plays. He just makes too many mistakes at this point, and maybe it's because he is more used to the cheetah position, and they threw him back at safety. But on the other, to play devil's advocate on that scenario, he's playing the cheetah position because he's expected to know both the safety and the linebacker role. Essentially, that's what the cheetah is, a hybrid player, and he just wasn't able to do that last week.
Yeah, what's funny is I didn't ever mention this, but I actually had a dream one night this week, that Jaden Rowe actually played safety. They rolled him out and played in this game. And that's probably more than just a dream, just because, they're probably going to try to maintain his red shirt. But in a way, if Trey Morrison isn't wowing this team, why not put a Robert Spears Jennings? Why not put a Jaden Rowe back there? I mean, Brandon obviously isn't here, and I'm sure he'd be pumped if I mentioned Jaden Rowe right about now, if he hadn't already at this point. Jaden Rowe can absolutely fly as far as his speed, his size. He's exactly what OU needs from a physicality standpoint. He's over 6 feet tall. He can run like no other. And him and having him and Jaron Kanik on the field at the same time would add so much speed and ability. Jaden Rowe is 6'2", 211 as a safety. Or I guess he could be a cheetah position type deal. But, I like Justin Broyles just because he's loyal to the team. He's been here forever. But there's limitations with him. It's just up and down with him. Sometimes he's on and sometimes he's off. I would like to see some of the younger guys get some playing time. Maybe my dream is right, but my gut is telling me it's wrong. It's more of a dream. That's what it is. And I think I just would be open just rolling out the young guys and just get after it. Michael, we're not 100% sure about Dylan Gabriel, but he did come on the field and he's warming up right now. And I would like to think, we mentioned at the top of the show, that I would think if you have a serious concussion, I don't think you'd be running around throwing footballs, being on the field right about now. And how you would do that and then determine that you can't play, I don't know. It just would seem odd to me.
Yeah, it's The Dylan Gabriel situation seems to be a tough one to track at this point. Oklahoma's really keeping that one close to the vest. I like I said on yesterday's video, I think maybe Wednesdays, I can't remember now. Seems like they're giving themselves time to really see, push it to when they need to announce the official roster for the game. Can Dylan play? Make it a last minute decision there on him. And we'll talk about who we'd hope to see in there as the replacement. But Sean brought up a good point, or a good question. What player is going to step up today? He's talking. It looks like he's talking about the defense, but I think overall you need players on both sides to step up. Do you have any players in mind, or do you want a second and I can go?
You can go first. You go ahead.
All right. So for Oklahoma, I think it's got to be whoever plays the quarterback position. The quarterback position, even with Dylan Gabriel in, hasn't been amazing, right, over those first 5 games. The first 3 games he looked fine, but we all still expected him to start looking better as the offense expanded, as he got more comfortable throughout the season, but it's actually looked a little worse in the last 2 conference games. So even if it's not Dylan, I think the quarterback position needs to look better. Again, we'll talk about who we prefer back there here in a little bit, and hopefully we have some updates on Dylan's status in the next 20-ish minutes, 30-ish minutes. But on the defensive side of the ball, it's probably a corner. I'm going to go with Woody. I would probably see him covering Xavier Worthy. He's going to need to step up. Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy have a good connection that seems like they had chemistry very early on here in Texas, and he's going to need to step up big time if Oklahoma's going to have any shot here because, again, I don't understand why Oklahoma fan. I get it that he's at Texas, but Quinn Ewers is a good football player. I don't get this response of, no, this kid sucks, Hudson Card is better. Hudson Card is not a bad quarterback, but Quinn Ewers is clearly a better thrower, is more accurate. Hudson Card is just a lot more mobile. So, yeah, I guess you can say that Hudson Card has an ability that Quinn Ewers doesn't. I just don't think he's a better quarterback, and he's not a guy that would really put any stress on the DBs, but it would put stress on the guys up front, just in case they have to run. Now, it's going to be, can the corners do their job? And I don't think the linebackers will have as much responsibility on their plates to try to chase down a quarterback that is outrunning them by, seems like 10, 15 yards every time they took off.
Yeah, and it's not, maybe for me it's not particularly one player, but I'm looking, assuming Dylan Gabriel goes, you need your offensive line to protect him and make him comfortable. You've got Alfred Collins on the other side of the ball, Overshawn, and some others that can really pass rush and make a quarterback uncomfortable. And I think you need to see this offensive line find, they're getting better, they're gelling together. They just need to protect, whether it's Nick Evers or Dylan Gabriel. I think it will be Gabriel, but they need to gel together to make him more comfortable. And whether, maybe that's probably one of the tackles should have a bigger game, either Harrison or, assuming Wanya goes. Have you seen anything about Wanya? Oh, you're muted.
Wanya is out at warm-ups without a sling. Okay. So possibly. It still seems very much like Dylan, a last-minute game-time decision.
Yeah, and so that's a big headline going into this. If Wanya can't go, it's whoever that, whether it's Guyton or whoever the replacement's going to be, needs to have a big game. Along the defensive side, Quinn Ewers is coming back for his first game action in it's been nearly a month. What has it been? It's been about a month, right? I think the Alabama game was early September, week 2. So this is week 6. He's been out for 4 weeks. I know he's been practicing, but you can't really mimic game speed, and you can't you can't simulate that. And I think that while I think he's very talented. Um, it's going to take him a bit to settle into this game because one, it's going to be his first game in a month. Two, there's a lot of emotions. This is a rivalry game. There's a lot of build up to this. He's probably going to be pretty pumped about playing. And he's young still. And I think this defensive line, I think you need to see Reggie Grimes and Ethan Downs finally, after the past few weeks not really getting after the quarterback. They need to make Quinn Ewers uncomfortable. If they can do that from the get go and not let him get any confidence, you could see OU start to really kind of impose their will, and that's where it's going to start. Because while the OU is kind of a little bit weak in the secondary right now, you need to not give Quinn Ewers time to get comfortable and pick your defense apart. You need that front four getting after him. And could R. Mason Thomas being back really help the rotation? I feel like he flashed some talent in the first 2 weeks, and then he got injured. I think against Kent State, and hopefully with his adding him to the rotation, they might be able to get a push and get some pressure. But they need to contain Quinn Ewers and make him uncomfortable, and that way he can start overthinking things.
Yeah, I think that is a fair point about him coming back to real game situations. Yeah, Reggie Grimes, he's been MIA the last 2 weeks. Ethan Downs, really everyone on the defensive line. Redmond made a couple good plays. Hopefully, I think Redmond could be a guy that makes a big impact today as well with the interior of in the interior of the defensive line. He is a very good pass rusher. So hopefully he's the one that gets in Quinn Ewers' face quite a bit outside of Reggie Grimes and hopefully Ethan Downs. Quarterback position, just to keep you guys updated, still nothing official. A lot of people at the game are just in between. They're optimistic because he is warming up and doing just the regular game day walkthrough and all that stuff. But the other quarterbacks are on the field as well, so it's not like they're not getting any reps either. It really seems like it's going to be a last-minute decision here, but we will see. With that, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comment section. We will discuss them as we see them. But we've talked about players that or positions we could see step up. Do you think that the coordinators need to do anything different going into Red River? Because that's something that's been criticized over the last week or two, especially Ted Roof, but I think last week Lebby was catching some flack too. He's had 5 straight slow starts, and it's really ended up costing Oklahoma because they can't put up any points. And with Ted Roof, I'm not sure if it's just what he's calling, it's not being communicated properly, or if he's calling something that is like fresh on an install and the players have no real grasp of it and he doesn't understand that. I'm not sure what the situation is, but there seems to be a lot of confusion with the defense, and the offense can't put up points quickly enough to help alleviate that the defensive slow start. What do you think, and what do you expect out of those two guys today?
Yeah, I'll start with the defensive side. Obviously, now you've got Billy Bowman out, and that's one of your best, if not the best, secondary player that you have. I think that Ted Roof and his defensive staff needs to tone back. Well, he's calling the play, so I think Ted Roof needs to tone back how aggressive this defense is, because right now the problem is while there is talent on this team, when the talent is not confident and you have no confidence in what you're doing or your instincts, you're really second guessing and you're overthinking. I mean, you talk about the NFL, you look at Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is the definition of overthinking things right now. He's still extremely talented, but he is not playing well. And I think this whole defense as a whole, this whole defense is second guessing themselves, overthinking and just not confident. So I think in order to compensate for their lack of confidence and also Billy Bowman being out, they need to not be quite as aggressive. They need to go to a 4-man front, get rid of the 3-man front, why they're running a 3-man front. It makes no difference. Run a 4-man. You lost a linebacker this past week for the season in Shane Witter. You got 4 active scholarship linebackers. You might have to pull a freshman up, like a Kobe McKenzie, and get rid of his red shirt. You run a 4-man front, two linebackers, and 5 defense or 4 defensive backs plus the cheetah position. You keep things more in front of you, and you just let your guys get a little confident. They just need a quarter or two to really kind of be like, okay, we can go back to the way we were playing the first 3 games. We can do that. And once they get their confidence, you can start being more aggressive. I understand why they're calling the way they're calling, and maybe that worked at Clemson, and maybe that'll work at Oklahoma in a couple years once Brent Venables gets more 4 and 5 stars along the defensive line and he gets his guys in. And I don't doubt that it'll work. It's just right now it's an information overload. The depth is very thin at the linebacker position, the safety position, 2 of the most important positions on this defense. You got to kind of coach, you kind of have to call plays to your personnel. I think you need to not be quite as aggressive, and I understand why you want to be, and I do too, but you got to know your personnel. As far as the offensive side with Levy, I will defend him a little bit. Part of it is on him. I mean, yeah, the TCU game, the first possession, there was a fumble, and it's just like, come on. I mean, they're just not catching a break. I'd like to see OU come in. They need to control the ball and limit the possessions for Texas. You need to keep your defense off the field as much as possible. You need to hog the ball. You need to be able to run the ball. You need to be able to rotate. Now you got Major coming back, Eric Gray's playing, and Javonte Barnes. You need to run all 3 of those guys today. You need to rotate them in, and you need your offensive line, hopefully Wanya Morris, become just dominant and be able to run the ball. If they can run the ball and play ball and keep the ball away from Quinn Ewers and keep that defense off the field, it's going to also give confidence to the defense saying, hey, we don't have to win this game. This offense is moving the ball. They're scoring. They're running. They're keeping the ball out of the hands of Texas. We're going to be fine. We only have to do a little bit. It's just this whole mindset. And I'd like to see OU win the coin toss, elect to receive, and go score first.
Yeah, I like that idea of Oklahoma electing to receive at first. Makes me a little nervous because of the slow starts. I really don't have any confidence that Levy can turn that around right now. I don't know. The games, and I told you this 2 weeks ago after the Kansas State game. I don't know if you remember, but we didn't record. It was before we started recording. I said Levy's offense looks a little stale. I'm not sure if it's because he's worried about Dylan's inaccuracy or he just doesn't want to get Dylan hurt, because Dylan can make plays on his feet and he avoids that. It seems like when I'm watching the offense. Yeah, I agree. He at least for this game. If there's any game this season where you need to just wake up and just force the ball down the field and try to get the Texas defense on their heels, it's today. The defense on their heels, it's today against Texas. The defense for Oklahoma does have their hands full with Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, Quinn Ewers. I mean that Texas offense is not bad. I think their defense has been taken advantage of in the games that they lost. That they really showed up against Alabama, and I think that's the one thing that we need to be conscientious of. Will they show up against Oklahoma? And I know both teams haven't been looking amazing, but again, Texas fans can make the argument that they should be 4-1 heading into this game and not 3-2 like Oklahoma is. They haven't been absolutely embarrassed. The Texas Tech loss was last minute. Bijan goofed, fumbled, and Texas Tech was able to pull it out at the end, which happens. It's not like that. I don't think they can make the argument that they should be undefeated, but to me, they can definitely say they could be 4-1 or should be 4-1 because the refs did kind of hoe them out of a win for the Alabama game, and they had a lot of injuries. That being said, Oklahoma needs to, like you mentioned when we were talking about Quinn Ewers, come in confident and try to rush him, make him nervous about what he's seeing on the field. Because if we can start getting him to second guess his decision making, it's going to be easier to get to him and easier to create turnovers, which is something Oklahoma really has not done this season. We have not created very many turnovers, and you don't need them to win per se, but when you can't get 3 and outs, you got to get the ball back a different way. So the tackles for loss have really gone down these last couple of weeks. Again, I think with Quinn Ewers not being that mobile of a quarterback, we could see that be different today. But I'm not saying this with like extreme confidence Oklahoma's going to get a ton of pressure on Quinn Ewers, because he can also get the ball out pretty quickly. So it's going to be a lot of things are going to have to happen early in the game. And again, it's the slow start kills Oklahoma. Both sides of the ball need to come in ready to go from the minute that they play that first play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, look at last year. Oklahoma was maybe not a great team when you look at it in hindsight, but we were able to pull out the win. But it was because we had a quarterback that was able to make some miraculous plays when he needed to, and Caleb Williams, no matter how you feel about him personally, it seems like when we're looking at this team as a whole in hindsight, if Caleb Williams was not the quarterback, probably would have been a 3 or 4 loss team, because things got so close. Could have lost the Kansas game, the Texas game, probably a couple of games that I can't recall right now, but definitely could have had a couple more losses on that schedule.
Yeah,
this team is going to get screwed if a big screenplay like that happens.
Yeah, and I will also defend Levy. I understand, his offense hasn't looked the best, and it's not living up to the expectations. In his defense, that TCU game, I can count a half dozen times off the top of my head where the receiver is wide open, and Gabriel's just missing them. I can think about every game. Kansas State, there were missed throws, and going back. Levy's getting guys open. Gabriel is just trying to throw it as hard and as fast as he can. And with him doing that, and like RG3 was explaining, he's kicking his leg too far out, not keeping it out from, keeping underneath him. And he's trying to throw it as hard as he can, and he's overthrowing these guys. And so, while some of it is on Levy, I do agree. But on the same token, if the guy is missing receivers, there's not a lot you can do. And I'm not putting OU in the same spot, but looking at the Broncos with Russell Wilson and Nathaniel Hackett, there's open receivers. Russell's just not seeing them, or is just not hitting, throwing at the right spot. I mean, so to some degree, it's not totally on Levy. It's a little bit on both. But I'd like to see Gabriel settle in. But the problem is this is his biggest game he's ever played. This OU Texas is by far the biggest game he's ever played. He's coming off of a concussion. Hopefully he can play. He's going to be amped up too. So I think in order to calm his nerve, you have to run the ball. And this offensive line needs to impose their will finally. Like, they have to run the football. And Texas has been giving up some rushing yards, here and there. 120, it's not a whole lot. That's the thing, is OU's given up nearly 200, and Texas has only given up 120 rushing yards. So OU is going to have their work cut out for them. But Eric Gray, 460 yards already. He's well on his way to 1,000-yard plus season. They need to lean on him today. And even Jonte Barnes and Marcus Major. They have to happen.
Yeah, and I've been going through the comment section here to see what the chatter's been about. Dylan, someone asked here, is he warming up or literally in warm-ups? No pads. No one is in pads right now, Sean. They're doing their warm-up in shorts and hoodie. So again, that's why everything is up in the air. If everyone else was in pads and Dylan wasn't, then I think it'd be a pretty clear sign that he wasn't playing. Someone's asking if it's fair that Dylan Gabriel can't read the field. I don't think it's his field awareness. It seems like he gets rattled and tries to absolutely sling the ball through a hole that might not be there, or even if it is there, he misses him because he's trying to get it there so quickly. And someone said, why can't he just lob the ball in rather than trying to throw darts? I understand the sentiment because that does seem to be the reason he keeps missing these receivers, because he's trying to just slingshot that thing in the right hole, but lobbing it isn't gonna fix the issue, because then you're just putting the ball in more danger, especially on these shorter throws. Putting it, trying to lob it into the receiver's hands isn't always the best situation, and he just needs to compose himself. Really, it's not his. He is very inaccurate because he seems to be in another world when he's trying to read the field, and he gets a little nervous from watching. I think if you talk to him, it seems like he'd be very confident, but he understands he needs to play better. And at the end of the day, as long as he recognizes that he hasn't performed to the level that he needs to, that's a good sign, because he's not content with what's happening. He just needs to learn how to fix it. Levy's job, right? He's the OC and the quarterback coach. You got to do something there to help him out. Mike has a question for us here. What recruits are hosting, or are we hosting today? Brum,
Well,
do you remember that list? I know it was
there's
quite a big list.
There's quite a few. There are. Let me double check. So going to be a lot of the 2023 class is coming. You look at. Let's see. Let's start from the top. Jackson Arnold, Anthony Evans, Jacoby Johnson, Samuel Mosigo, Jaquez Petaway, Josh Bates, Vickers, McCarty. OU's also hosting Peyton Bowen, Eli Bowen in the 24 class, Ryan Yates, teammates of Jackson Arnold and Peyton Bowen, and Johnny Bowens, probably one of the biggest defensive line targets OU has left in this 23 class after what has happened. A lot of guys in the 24 class. Also, Colton Vasek will be there as well. So we're going to see Colton Vasek in some Sooner stuff at the OU Texas game. Probably the first time he's ever wearing OU stuff at the OU Texas game. So he's going to be there. 2024, DJ Lagway is going to be there. That 5-star quarterback, 4-star quarterback Michael Hawkins will be there. Xavier Sims, Eli Bowen, as I said earlier, Micah Hudson, he's a 5-star wide receiver, and a handful of other guys like Peyton Pierce and Stacey Gage. There's a boatload of recruits that are coming for this game. Sorry, I knocked my phone over for this game, and I think it's huge, and especially if OU coming in as the underdog and beats Texas with all these kids to show them in person and have a good time. I think it can impact a lot of their decisions. And we talked about, I don't know if it was on Wednesday's show or Friday's show, but typically when OU and Texas play, they're always a lot of the same. OU and Texas are going after the same recruits a lot of the time. And typically what ends up happening is who wins the OU Texas game typically wins out on one or two recruiting battles for the year. And, that just seems typical. I mean, you look at Kobe McKenzie, even with the whole change, and he committed to Texas, and then OU came in and beat him out and then won his commitment. Could this, game have an impact on maybe a Tassili Akana? I know Texas is recruiting Tassili Akana. Could this be the game that puts Peyton Bowen over the edge? And while Texas is not really in the running, but Texas A&M's playing Alabama today. They might get beat by 100, but OU beats Texas as the underdog, and it seems like a lot of these guys in the 23 and 24 class realize when OU says they need them, they mean they need them. And I think a lot of these kids are looking at it as an opportunity for them to come in and be able to play game one in some instances. I mean, you're going to have guys graduating, not many, but obviously the talent hasn't been great so far. You come in, you're a 4 or 5 star, you've got all the talent in the world. Um, you might be able to get a starting spot. Someone BK just said Bryce Young is out.
Yeah, he
Um,
is.
is he? Okay, I didn't
Yeah,
see
but so
that.
is Max Johnson got hurt his hand this week during practice. So it is Haynes King versus Milrow. I think it's the quarterback's last name for Alabama. I can't remember the guy's name. But yeah, it is battle of the backups during that game. So it's really whose overall team do you believe in more? Alabama's running game is probably the best in the country, if not one of the best in the country, with both their running
Yeah.
backs plus this quarterback who's a runner. Probably going to
Hmm.
make that if you're going to bet on anything, I guess the under seems like a fair bet for that game if the point total is still in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Jose.
this
I,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I was going to mention before we move on to recruiting, I didn't mention Javian Tovino, and I know we talked about in the recruiting video. Do you want to talk about him, being there?
Yeah, so he's going to be there. I'm still slightly confused. This morning I went on Twitter before we went live, and he was asked. He tweeted out about getting more Red River tickets. So I don't know if Oklahoma's hosting him. I'm still confused about that situation. If Oklahoma is hosting him, it's strange to me because that communication seems to have severed a long time ago. At this point, maybe Oklahoma's revisiting it and he's open to having that conversation. But Texas is and has been one of the leaders for his commitment for a long time now. So, I mean, take it for what it is. I really wouldn't expect him to really be entertaining the possibility of being at Oklahoma. And I would hope, because it seems like Oklahoma has been doing this for the entire year, not really just letting a kid visit just to visit, especially in these games where you really would want to have only the guys that you feel have a good chance of going to Oklahoma to be there, especially when the other school is Texas that you're trying to beat. It'd be tough to lose and then have a kid be like start leaning towards Texas because of the game and then start getting into the other guy's ears. I feel like that's a dynamic that coaches have to try to balance, but again, I wouldn't really be too confident in a Javian Toviano announcement that Oklahoma is somehow now in his top schools. It does seem like we're trending a little better for him, but we're probably like school 6 or 7 because he put out a top 5 schools. If you guys saw yesterday's video, put out a top 5 schools a while ago, and he removed that recently. I guess it was like Michigan, Alabama, uh, Texas A&M, and one other school I can't recall right now. Oh, LSU. And LSU was the leader for his recruitment for a long time. Then Texas seemed to become the number one for his commitment. That his commitment is very back and forth, and Oklahoma hasn't been involved, so we haven't really seen the roller coaster of the ride. But if you follow just general recruiting, it's been very much kind of like Gentry Williams last year, if you want to compare his recruitment to anyone. Very much visit highs, get him to feel very excited about one place, and he takes another visit, gets super excited about that place. So we'll see if this game has any impact on him or if Oklahoma gets any shot at his commitment, because he would be a big-time player to add to the defensive back room if he plays. I know On3 has him as a safety and 247 has him as a corner. Clearly, he's a very talented defensive back. I'm not really sure that Oklahoma really has a realistic shot at this one. You still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, no, you're
All
good.
right, cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't think we have any questions, so let's go to here. Let's go ahead and talk about just the other games around college football. We can kick it off with the A&M and Alabama game, and hopefully, as we're talking about these games, there's more updates on the depth chart of today's game.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you watched any of the games from last night, but Houston came back with
I
like
saw
2 minutes
that.
left. They were down like 19. Nebraska got another win. Nebraska's 3-3. Look at that. You know they're leading the Big Ten West now because the Big Ten West is that horrible. But yeah, let's talk about that Alabama Texas A&M game. You know, Bryce Young being out, Johnson being out. It's going to be who has the better roster, top to bottom. And I think we all know who has the better roster, and that is Alabama. And who has the better coach? Alabama. And it's on the road at Alabama, if I'm remembering this correctly. Um, I think or Alabama just leans on them and just runs over them. They run the ball. They take care of them. I I don't think it's overly close, really. I just don't think Texas A&M hangs with them. Um, I would love to see Alabama blow them out. You know, again, we're in this recruiting competition for Peyton Bowen. Anytime we can, make him look at A&M, look, it's horrible. Jimbo Fisher's been there 5 or 6 years now. He still hasn't been able to turn it around with the number one class and all this money that they're funneling in. This is year one. We're half a season in with Brent Venables. This is a rebuilding. Jimbo is just not getting it done down there. And maybe could David Hicks start second guessing, but he might have other reasons why he's not going to second guess A&M. But I don't think this one's overly close. I think Alabama handles them comfortably. And I think the spread on this game, Alabama is a 24-point favorite. 24 points. That's insane.
Yeah, that's a lot of points for a team that's not having their Heisman winning quarterback and going to be running the ball a lot. We're not adding to bets, but I might be sprinkling some on my own personal side for that game. Yeah, I don't think A&M really has a realistic shot at winning that game. I believe they beat Alabama last year, but that was like a miraculous win that no one expected. Nick Saban is not going to let that shit happen again. After what happened in the offseason apparently what the situation was, he was talking to boosters, talking about how much money is needed now for NIL situations. And Jimbo clearly has a fuck ton of boosters just wanting to try to make that program something when it's been nothing its entire history. And Alabama and Nick Saban said, nah, fuck that. We're going to continue to show you why you stink and you're not good at football. I would expect that to be the same. Both coaches probably have a little bit of a personal vendetta in this game, but Nick Saban at the end of the day is going to win out and kill the Aggies, in my opinion. I do think it's going to be I don't think it's going to be a super high scoring game, given that probably both of them are going to be relying on their run, and Haynes King is butt cheeks at throwing the ball, worse than the quarterbacks we've got on our roster, and people aren't very happy about the quarterbacks on our roster. So if that tells you anything, that is a scenario that they're dealing with. And Jimbo has a shit offense from every account of any expert that knows college football. Jimbo trots out an offense that should be an antique on a shelf at this point. Mike asked if Jimbo leaves, does Hicks and others reconsider Oklahoma? I mean, maybe.
I would think so, but I just don't think that Jimbo's leaving because I don't think his buyout. I think his buyout's like $90 million or 50 million or 90 million. It's something astronomically high. I
They
don't.
o- they overpaid for Jimbo because they paid a shit ton for him to get out of the FSU contract, and they
Yeah,
signed him for a long time to be their coach.
yeah. I don't see him actually getting fired because I don't think they literally can afford. And Texas A&M's got a lot of money. I don't think they can afford to buy him out and then go pay another big time coach a ton of money. I just don't think they can. At least not yet. What about that Tennessee LSU game that's going to be starting at the same time as Red River? It's
That's going
on
to be
at
a good game.
Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee's on the road at LSU. Um, I don't know what to expect in that game. I think Tennessee should go in and beat them, but I don't know. I mean, LSU's been playing some solid football. Tennessee's a 3-point favorite. Hooker's pretty good for Tennessee, but I don't know. I mean, that quarterback, Jaden Daniels for LSU, he's been solid. He's been solid. Brian Kelly's gotten this, after his tough start, he's kind of calmed everything down. They're winning a few games. They're looking halfway decent. Um, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think Brian Kelly and his family are going to want to really prove that they are a good team. They are 4-1. I think they just had a terrible performance week 1. It was all. I don't really know too much about that LSU team, but I know that they had pretty much a brand new quarterback, Jay Daniels, brand new head coach, a lot of newness down there at LSU, and they're putting it together. Brian Kelly wins wherever he goes, so I really don't expect him to suck, but I do think both of their defenses haven't been amazing. Tennessee's definitely hasn't been great, but both offenses have been able to score points, so I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. So if the Red River game gets out of hand and I'm to the point of breaking my television, I'll probably be tuning into that Tennessee LSU game so I can relax for a second.
Breaking your television. I've been there once or twice. I certainly hope today's not like that.
Yeah, and Lloyd, Diddy has not played for A&M yet, but it's due to injury, from our understanding. They're really rotating in a lot of their young guys. So even if he hasn't played due to depth, I think that's something that he could have expected when he did make the commitment to A&M, because they already had like 6 defensive linemen signed by the time he made his decision.
Yeah. How about the biggest game of the day? Kansas TCU.
Dude, that game's going to
College
be fun
game
to
day.
watch.
It actually will be. I kind of hate that it's on at 11 o'clock. I think TCU ends up beating Kansas. But I don't know. I mean, that quarterback for Kansas is good. But Max Duggan is also good. And I mean, Daniels for them, he scored 11 touchdowns throwing. He is surprising some people. I mean, he scored 11. He scored a total of 16 touchdowns with 1 interception. He is playing extremely well. I think TCU might give him a little, I don't know. I just think that TCU is a little too much. And I'm looking at the line now. Whenever we bet, TCU was -6.5. Now TCU is -7.5. If that was the case when I was betting, I might have taken Kansas plus 7.5, because I think TCU might win, but it might be by just a touchdown. But I still think TCU wins by a touchdown. What do you think?
I think I was on the Kansas side of it. I took Kansas in our Picks Friday video yesterday. Even with the hook, I like it even more. I do think that it's probably going to be a high scoring affair. But I guess we'll see. I'm not really sure what is. I mean, outside of last week's game versus TCU, I didn't really know that TCU could score that many points. But Kansas has shown that they are a very good offense. So I, again, expect that to be a high-scoring bout. I hope Kansas comes out on top. I really want them to be undefeated. I hope they win the Big 12 if Oklahoma can't. And Malachi Coleman is not making his commitment today.
No, it's on the 22nd.
That is on the 22nd. So still a couple weeks. I would not expect that to be Oklahoma, given that Oklahoma has not been really recruiting him for the last month or so.
How about Utah UCLA at 2:30 on Fox?
Go Utes. UCLA's, I guess it'll be it would be cool if they won, because then if they can sustain that going to the Battle of LA late in the year, they can whoop on the Trojans, but that seems unlikely. Yeah, I think Utah's gonna pull that one out. I think you were on Utah, right? And they're the favorites by like 12 points or something like that.
Oh no, it was only 3.
3. Okay, don't know where I came up with
Yeah,
that big ass line.
it's still it was. I think it might have been 3.5. Now it's only 3 points for Utah. But looking at Utah's schedule, they're on the road at UCLA this weekend, and then next weekend they're at home against USC. So next weekend is a big game. Hopefully, Utah takes care of both of the Southern California teams. Los Angeles teams. I think they will. I think they're tougher. Ohio State, Michigan State, on at 3 o'clock on ABC. Now,
Hold on. Before you keep going, new development with Dylan Gabriel. He has walked out on the field again. This time with his pads, jersey, and helmet, just like every other player would. So again, a lot of confusion being thrown out there by the staff on the decision for Dylan Gabriel playing. It seems possible, more possible than it did even an hour ago.
Yeah, I think he plays for sure. But now Ohio State, Michigan State. Michigan State, I thought they were a lot better than they were, and they've looked horrendous. Ohio State is out. There's a lot of guys out today. Jackson Smith and Jigba's out. Mayan Williams will also be out. That's their leading rusher. I know they've got Travion Henderson. I'm not saying that Ohio State's going to be on an upset alert. I'm not saying that. It's on the road at Michigan State. I'm just saying I think there's a total of 10 players, 9 or 10 players that are out for Ohio State today. It could get a little closer than people think. I think Ohio State wins, but Michigan State has nothing to lose, and there's a lot of good players out for Ohio State. It could get interesting.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. I don't think they cover that. What is it, 27 right now with the injuries out? But they get Travion Henderson back this week. They'll probably win by like 20. I really don't think Michigan State's a very good squad. Mel Tucker and him and the Spartans got a very good transfer class last year, and they got to kind of rebuild because a lot of those guys moved on to the NFL, especially there with the loss of their running back, who was essentially their the focal point of their offense last year. It's hard to replace a running back of that caliber. Mark Vigil, Oklahoma alone might get Martinez to an NFL roster. I thought that last week too. It made him look like the best quarterback in the Big 12 for one game. Any other games you want to cover? I mean, we've been on here for about an hour. Game time is soon. Might be a good time to wrap up here.
Yep. I just hope that Washington State can beat USC tonight. Go Cougs, and hopefully they can take care of them. I mean, Washington State's 4-1. You never know. But yeah, that's all I've got. I think Dylan Gabriel plays. I think this game's closer than most people think. Do you have a score prediction? You've seen Dylan Gabriel. You've been hesitant to do a score prediction because you never knew about the injuries. You know Billy Bowman's out. It appears that Dylan Gabriel, I am confident saying that Dylan Gabriel is going to play. What is your score prediction?
I'm going to say 30, 31, 24. Texas. I think Texas is going to win, unfortunately, but I've been really wanting to hold that back. But I think they'll be able to pull it out at the end.
Yep. All right. And then, as I said earlier on the video on Friday, I think it was Friday's video, or maybe it was Wednesday's. unfortunately, I do agree with you. I think it's 37-31 Texas. Um, I certainly hope that whenever we post a recap video that you guys can come after us and OU won and be like, you guys are, what are you thinking and things like that. Um, I just think it's closer than people will think. I think that Texas pulls out a close one. Um, I just hope I'm wrong. I've been on OU the entire way till this point, and now I'm going to pick against them. And this is the one time. This is where OU's going to come out and probably beat them like 48-0.
Yeah.
That's typically how it works.
Yeah.
So
If we are wrong, please come back and tell us that we're absolute dipshits. Yes. I will gladly accept that one.
Yes, for sure. So
all right.
Well, appreciate everyone coming by.
Enjoy the game. See ya.